Thank you. My name is MadZack, and you've stumbled across the Nightcrawler podcast here on YouTube. This here is just the audio with some still images, and I know on YouTube it's a bit more fun to watch podcasts where you can actually see the people talking, like you're seeing me talk right now to you. But I decided to put on both just the audio file, and there's another video on the channel of us, of Krazy, Kraig, and I, actually talking. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, but podcasts are mostly like, you listen to them. That's kind of the point of a podcast. But if you're more in the mood to just watch it, we do have that video there on our page, broken up into two different parts. And right here, you're going to get the entire podcast, where we talk about the best and the worst remakes and the reboots. And I just want to remind you to check out soundcloud.com/Nightcrawler podcast. Haven't gotten the podcast up on iTunes yet. I'm fucking stupid when it comes to this kind of stuff, but I'm super passionate about this podcast, and I guess about the YouTube channel, at least by proxy. And so I can't wait to get it on iTunes, and I can't wait for this community that we're building to kind of erupt into something great. And if you feel like you want to be on the podcast, so you have something you want to talk about, this is mostly a podcast about action movies, where we also talk about science fiction, horror films, comic book movies, a lot of things to do with nerd culture, but primarily crime films or action films are what piques my interest. And if you feel like you have something to say about these topics, then most definitely get in touch with me any way that you can. I mean, YouTube comments are a great place to do that. So if you want to be on the podcast, just let me know, and most likely you'll be on the podcast. But without me putting this off any further, here's the podcast that you clicked on, and want to thank you for clicking on it, and subscribe to the channel, or subscribe to us on SoundCloud as well. You'd get more immediate results that way. And thank you for listening to the podcast, and I'll keep you updated on both the sister podcast, which will be called Daywalker, which hasn't launched yet, but it will soon. And I'll also keep you updated on where you can find the podcast once I get it up on iTunes or the Player FM app. And this is just MadZack saying thank you so much for listening, and this is supporting. So thank you so much for supporting us so far. Have a good one. Enjoy the podcast. All right. Welcome to the Nightcrawler podcast. Today, we are talking about the best reboots. We're going to talk about the best remakes and reboots on this one. Wow, I'm eloquent. That was good. Kraig, what makes a good remake or reboot? What do you look for in a remake or a reboot?
Me personally, I'm a little weird about reboots. Reboots obviously are very popular right now. Everyone wants to kind of cash in on nostalgia or just the fantasy of, like, even if you haven't seen an old movie, but you hear it's being remade, it's almost more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, people are really buying into the idea of reboots and remakes. So, me personally, like, if a movie was bad, but you knew it had something there, I completely look forward to those movies being remade. Or if a movie was made and it was just not funded well,
right?
Like the actors were subpar, but the story was there, or maybe the effects weren't there to kind of put it all together. The scenery, like I've seen there's probably a handful of good movies out there that are just like they didn't have the money to travel, so they couldn't get the exact settings that they wanted, stuff like that. So those are the kind of movies I look forward to being remade, is when they're just trying to take what was already working and do it just better.
Right. I guess I look for somewhat of the same things. Like, I guess I kind of agree with you. Do a remake. Of course, if you want to deconstruct what you did, that's always interesting. There's always got to be, like you said, an additional concept to mine out of the original idea. So, or that original idea has to be prevalent again, or even more prevalent now, even more necessary to to express now, like that kind of thing. Let's just hop into. I do disagree about effects not being there, stuff like that. I don't really think that matters. It's more about just concepts. But let's just jump into the best. Do you have any off the top of your head, like a remake that you saw or a reboot that was like, this is better than the original, or at least on par with it in some sort of like equally powerful way?
I can't think of anything right off the top of my head.
That's cool. I got a list here, so we're gonna go down them. Number one being, if you listen to this podcast at all, you'll know I'm a huge, Miami Vice fan, so I won't go into it here. But the 2006 Michael Mann, I guess, reboot or remake, film version of the television show, and is an amazing deconstruction of 80s iconography. It's an amazing philosophical statement about crime and about, it's like a neon Socrates kind of thing. I love it to death. So Miami Vice is obviously my favorite reboot or remake. Did you watch The Fly, starring Jeff Goldblum?
No, but I've heard really good things about it.
It's a great remake.
Love Jeff Goldblum, so.
Well, a lot of people should love Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum's a really cool dude. But that's a good reboot or remake. Totally turns all the concepts on its head. And like I said, if a concept becomes even more like important or urgent now, like that kind of bleeds into it, because Cronenberg almost he made it in the 80s, and you almost get an undercurrent or subtext of the AIDS scare or sexually transmitted diseases. You get like an undercurrent of that inside of The Fly. So he kind of made it even more perfect for the times. And then you got Scarface, the Al Pacino movie, which was a remake of course, the Howard Hawks, Howard Hughes produced movie starring Paul Muni and George Raft. They remade it. Brian De Palma remade it with Al Pacino and Michelle Pfeiffer, and I thought did very good. I'm a Brian De Palma fan, so I kind of like his general sleaziness behind the camera. Did you like Scarface?
I've not seen it.
You gotta see that one at least.
There's a giant list of why haven't you seen these movies that I've been meaning to check off.
A lot of people have problems with Scarface, but I don't. I think those people are just trying to be edgy by not liking like the most popular thing in the world, I guess. There's really no reason not to like the movie Scarface. They're just trying to be contrarian, so far as I'm concerned. And then we get The Departed. Scorsese remade Infernal Affairs. Of course, I think he made him. That's at least unequivocally better than the original. Scorsese outdid himself there. And then we get Mildred Pierce, which I just wanted to include. The HBO miniseries starring Kate Winslet, Evan Rachel Wood, and Guy Pearce is at least on par with the Michael Curtiz, Joan Crawford film, with the best Zachary Scott performance I've ever seen. It's at least on par with it. It goes for additional concepts in there. Then I'm just going to run through a couple of these. Like A Fistful of Dollars, I actually think is better than Yojimbo, which is the movie it completely rips off. I think Sergio Leone did it much better than Akira Kurosawa. And then you get the True Grit remake by the Coen brothers. And I think everyone agrees that movie is stronger than the original. The original is very good still a very good movie. But the remake is something incredible there. And then we get into the Christopher Nolan Batman reboot. And I also wanted to include the Tim Burton films as well, because technically those were rebooting what we were most familiar with Batman with at the time, which was the 60s television show and Adam West. And he had quite a task ahead of him, kind of reinventing The Dark Knight. And then Christopher Nolan kind of had the same daunting task with making us forget about the Joel Schumacher films and creating the most realistic superhero world that I've ever seen. It's basically a Michael Mann ripoff universe, but still, I quite like it. Do you have any idea? I just named a bunch of movies there. Do you have any input on those?
No, I'm starting to think we watch completely different movies, to be honest.
Well, then what remakes or reboots, man, are you thinking of, dude?
I don't know. I don't have a list.
Well, I also got Casino Royale here, the beginning of the Daniel Craig James Bond series.
Yeah, I mean that was a really good movie, but I reboot. Is it a direct reboot, or are you just saying like it's a reintroduction of James Bond?
Well, it's not a reintroduction. It's not an introduction of a new James Bond as opposed to like when we got Pierce Brosnan or Timothy Dalton. The first time you see 007 in Casino Royale, he's becoming a 00. And we also meet like the male M. We meet Q. We meet Moneypenny all for the first time in the criminal organization known as Spectre. These were all long-standing staples of the series before this, and if we're meeting them for the first time, therefore they're rebooting them. It's not really reintroducing; it's a complete reboot because these things weren't known before these new movies. So it is technically a reboot, and it was billed as partly as a reboot, or at least a prequel. When Casino Royale first came out, it wasn't just check out this new James Bond like it has been with all the other ones. It was, he's younger, he's making more mistakes, and he's a bit more aggressive and more raw. Like you can tell he's learning. He's learning things. So Casino Royale is definitely a reboot. I think people forget that it was kind of sold to us as a reboot of the franchise. But every subsequent component of the James Bond Daniel Craig series has reintroduced or rebooted long-standing characters.
No, I haven't gone back and watched any of the old James Bond movies recently, but I've obviously seen a couple of them growing up. And I want to say that Daniel Craig's version of James Bond seems more real. I don't know. It seems more like a well fleshed out character. The other characters seem more like this is 007 as opposed to this is James Bond.
No, I totally agree with that as well. They made him more complicated. Thought it was even slightly courageous in Skyfall when, like, kind of homoerotic moments between Silva and Bond of, like, what makes you think this is my first time? Like, stuff like that. And it is pretty sexually ambiguous, so they went complicated with sexual energy. And also, I think it was the sign of the times with making Bond a bit more realistic, a bit more emotionally or physically substantial. Because, I mean, at Casino Royale time, I'm sure that was like the age of Batman Begins and like that we were just talking about, which is kind of rebooting a franchise or like reintroducing a franchise, but with more human elements attached to these kind of mythical characters. So that's like a sign of the times thing. And it's interesting to see that kind of wean off now, I think. I think that's kind of weaning off because DC movies have tried to mine that for all it's worth and have come up with like nothing because they're so talentless at doing that exact concept. And I think Daniel Craig's actually the best Bond. And a large part of that is owed to what you were just saying about him being more of a character than an archetype or than just a popular screen figure. Like you certainly don't watch a Roger Moore James Bond movie for the pathos, but you could put on Casino Royale or Spectre for the pathos.
Yeah, it's almost as if you took a superhero movie and if you watched a superhero movie and the superhero never took off their mask, it wouldn't be nearly as interesting.
Yeah. Now it wouldn't be nearly as interesting.
But yeah, because it's probably due to the fact that we've had so much fantasy thrown at us over and over and over again that we're wanting a step back. Like maybe we just enjoy seeing the realistic side of fantasy.
Would you call Casino Royale? I always call aspects of Skyfall a deconstruction, but would you call the Daniel Craig films kind of like a deconstruction of Bond in a way? I mean, not a super crazy one, not like a super in-depth one, but like it keeps it within range to use like the deconstructed elements.
I mean, there's probably an argument to be there, but I wouldn't say that they actively.
Yeah, not actively, but like I said, like almost within, like if you wanted to go into it and watch, particularly like Skyfall, probably with uh like a philosophical bent, lean, or bias of like, I don't think that you'd be grabbing onto things that aren't actually there. I think those things are there. You just have to give it a lot more effort than the. I do think that there are deconstructionist elements involved in the films, like you said, not actively, but they're there. Like you can take the fruit off the tree there. They did establish several elements that you can sink your teeth into and really think about. But I think that Sam Mendes and the makers of the movies were mature and refined enough to not make that, to not spotlight that kind of deconstructionist cinema, which is interesting. I think those movies are pretty good, pretty interesting, and you can either take them at face value or you can dig deep into them. And I don't think you'd be digging without any evidence or to no avail. I think that there is a deeper texture to the franchise.
Yeah, I don't think it would go all too far, but I do agree. It's actually making me want to rewatch the movie because now I think of the scene where they completely destroy his car,
Mm.
I don't know why, but when we're talking about deconstructing Bond as a character, like all I can picture is his iconic car being completely destroyed.
And it's like almost has a castrating effect. Yeah, that's awesome. And Silva himself, I think Javier Bardem's villain in Skyfall, is a complete deconstruction of the Bond villain aesthetic. I mean, he captures all the staples, but he kind of vomits them back at you, and like
you were saying, the eroticism that he brings is almost like a heavy-handed version of what you would get from other villains.
Exactly.
Like he's just telling you as opposed to it just being in the
That's brilliant.
background.
That's one of the best villains I've seen in movies in the last 20 years. I know I've seen so many, and I agree. I fully agree. You can see where they're coming from. With if you didn't have Heath Ledger's Joker, you most likely wouldn't have Silva or the Skyfall movie. For some reason, that did come out at a time where like every villain wanted to get arrested and captured on purpose so that they could go through with their ridiculous like 12-point plan where like chance and coincidence plays into it. You know, like it is very much like that. But whereas The Dark Knight is a Heat, it's a good movie, but it's a Heat ripoff. Skyfall is a movie that was directly inspired by The Dark Knight. I think does everything better than The Dark Knight did. Skyfall is an amazing movie. Then we got a little. No, we didn't really get off track here. What else? I'm going to go to something else that you probably hadn't seen.
All right.
But anyways, next you have seen, we actually have talked about how much we both like the Sherlock television show starring Benedict Cumberbatch, Martin Freeman, and Andrew Scott. Amazing television show, an amazing... You see, do we have different definitions of what reboot means? Like, would you consider that a reboot? Or at least a modernization?
Well, yeah, but Sherlock Holmes has been rebooted so many times that it's almost like we don't even think about it when they do it. Like if they were to make another Sherlock Holmes movie right now, nobody would care.
No, does anybody notice?
It would just happen.
Yeah, we had two concurrent Sherlocks going on at the same time. We had Downey Jr.'s and Benedict's, and no one really noticed there were two.
Yeah, and then we had the American TV show, which was, in my opinion, complete garbage.
Johnny Lee Miller's show. Holy shit. Lucy Liu. Oh my god, I forgot that show existed.
Yeah, I mean, good for you.
It was better days when I forgot it existed. But the British television show, I don't know what makes it work so perfectly other than like Benedict Cumberbatch's like natural, I don't know, presence or charisma, and Andrea Scott's complete understanding of the Moriarty role. It has to probably do with structure as well, because you get 3 episodes per season, 90 minutes long. A lot of people say it's overwritten, but I just think that they're misplacing that's a misplaced criticism, because the show itself expresses the characteristics of its subject, and its subject is an overwrought and hyperactive individual. Therefore, the show should also be that way. So I just don't think that criticism holds any water. I'm trying to figure out why it's such a good reboot, because some of the ways they bring him into modern times or modernity is a bit nauseating, but it all works. It all works perfectly. I'm trying to think of why it's a good reboot. Trying to put my finger on it, other than amazing performances. Probably just the reimagination of Moriarty and Sherlock is what does it for me.
I don't know, like one thing that I love, and it seems like something you would think would get old pretty fast, but every time they do it, it's just fantastic. When they show Sherlock's thought process.
Oh yeah.
When it's got like the random words
neat.
Just flying around and like numbers calculating and stuff like that.
Yeah, close up on like a hair.
I feel like I would call that corny any other time, but it works so well. And just I don't know, like they really throw you into Sherlock's world, and that's why I think it works so well. It's because
they really do.
It's not like you're just watching Sherlock. You're experiencing Sherlock.
Oh, yes, exactly. But you are experiencing it by proxy through Watson. So even then, it's a nice filtered view, even most of the time.
Yeah,
very good.
Because sometimes you go directly into Sherlock's head, which.
And a lot of people had problems with this most current 4th season that involved his sister. I loved it. I thought it was great. Of course, I love the Moriarty fan service of him singing "I wanna be free" or "Break Free" by Queen. No, it's just a very good show. Very good show. So move on to Cruel Intentions. Did you ever see Cruel Intentions? It's a modernization or a reboot of Dangerous Liaisons. Either a classic work, or you can view it as the John Malkovich and Michelle Pfeiffer, Uma Thurman, Keanu Reeves movie. Cruel Intentions was Sarah Michelle Gellar, Ryan Phillippe, Selma Blair, gorgeous Selma Blair, and Reese Witherspoon, kind of acting like, I don't know, if you've never seen it, you might not like it now if you watched it, but like I grew up with it. It was in the era of like, probably it's just a bad teen movie, but I have nostalgia for it. Maybe it's misplaced nostalgia, but I still put it here. Did you see The Thing? John Carpenter's The Thing with Kurt Russell?
Oh, John Carpenter's? Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's a reboot. That's a remake of The Thing from outer space.
Really?
Yes. And it's excellent.
Because I know that there was a reboot of that movie.
Yeah, there was a reboot of the
reboot.
And
I haven't seen it, but I was told it was completely horrible.
No, it's not good at all. It's not good at all. That's not what we're talking about.
Okay.
The John Carpenter movie itself was actually a reboot of a very old.
I've actually watched that. I guess it wasn't all that recent. It feels like it was fairly recent. It was maybe like 2 years, a year and a half ago.
I love Kurt Russell. I think that John Carpenter and Kurt Russell have partnered up to make like the coolest fucking movies ever. Of course, I'm thinking immediately of Escape from New York, one of my favorite action movies, Big Trouble in Little China, one of my favorite childhood memories, and The Thing, which has some of my favorite effects I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah, really good practical effects. That's
amazing practical effects, and it's probably my favorite Keith David role as well. It's really good. It's really good.
Just the opening scene of that movie caught me right off the bat because it's my friend's favorite movie. He's a huge horror film fanatic, and he'll watch every horror film beginning to end, even if he hates it before he watches it. Like, he can read a synopsis, say this movie's probably going to suck, and then watch it all the way through just because.
Yeah, I can't even do that with action. I have my limits.
It's just because he's watched so much that at this point he's just searching for the next great thing. But overall films, he says that the Thing is the best, hands down.
The best at effects?
The best as far as
or as films go?
Overall horror goes.
I think your friend's wrong.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You think there's better horror films?
Than The Thing? Yeah. Suspiria would immediately go on there. Dario Argento's beautiful, beautiful movie. Alien is better than The Thing. I mean, if you just want to go to the science fiction route, Alien's a lot better than The Thing.
I guess he's got his reasons. I don't know.
He's got to have his reasons. I don't think it's a wrong idea. I'm not saying it shouldn't be on a top 10 somewhere. Opinion. I don't think it shouldn't be on a top 10. Well, that's my personal opinion as well. I think Halloween is better than The Thing, even if you just want to go with Carpenter. I would have to hear justification for that. It wouldn't shock me to see it on a top 10 somewhere, but no, I can't get down with it being the best horror movie. Yeah, Suspiria, Alien, and Halloween that I just named immediately come to mind as being superior to it on basically every level. Kurt Russell's fucking awesome. I'm not gonna say anything bad about that man. That man's my dad. We got The Untouchables, which was Brian De Palma made the movie in the 80s, kind of a reboot or remake of the popular television show about Elliot Ness and his cadre that took down Al Capone. I love the movie The Untouchables. People like to rag on it because Elliot Ness is always like 2 steps ahead of everybody else, like a staple good guy. But that's why that's it. That's the show. That's why we're watching it. A lot of great De Palma motifs involved in it. Ennio Morricone scored to die for. And De Niro fucking kicking ass as Al Capone, man. Really good. Kevin Costner was even really good in that movie. That movie is really good. It should be reappraised and revalued as being a very good movie. And then I just don't know where else I could put this. Dracula in 31 when Todd Browning was making the original Dracula with Bela Lugosi at the same time, concurrently and independently, to that version being made. There was a Spanish version being made that had far more in common with F.W. Murnau's sensibilities than Browning's, which is kind of conventionally boring or artistically bland. You also had the Spanish version at the same time, which is a far more fascinating, sophisticated movie to watch from a technical viewpoint or vantage point. It's not a reboot. It was made at the same exact time. It's just a different version. If I don't bring it up here, I won't ever bring it up. And I did include Tron Legacy on here. What are your thoughts on Tron?
I don't want to say that I haven't seen the first one because I know I've seen the first one when I was a kid, but I haven't seen the first one recent enough to really compare them. But as a standalone movie, I mean, I have no reason to dislike it outright.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really fun. It was visually appealing, I suppose. I really love the aesthetic.
I watched it in theaters. I never watched it again, but I really dug the aesthetic of the reboot, and I thought they did a good job. A lot of great bits of fan service, and basically I couldn't think of a better. See, it operates as a sequel so well too. So I don't even know if this really qualifies, but I couldn't think of a better way to continue or reboot the Tron story than what they did there. Next, we're gonna get on what most people probably think is the best reboot in history, and that's probably Star Trek: The Next Generation, going from Captain Kirk to Jean-Luc Picard. Gotta say, it's a super inspired, really well done reboot that has more than legs. It has 4 feature films and 9 seasons. It outlasted the original series in every way. I'm an original series fan. That's what I like the best. I like TNG, but not crazy for it, not bonkers for it. Whereas I can really get into some original series material. Yeah. But I understand the Next Generation and what people latched onto it.
Now that is probably one thing that my dad actually does nerd out on is Star Trek. He's a huge Star Trek fan. Probably more so Star Trek than Star Wars. Mm. Probably just because of the fact that unless you get into books, there's just more to take in with Star Trek than there is Star Wars. So yeah, I definitely grew up watching the Star Trek movies. I remember the one where they saved what was it, a whale or something?
Yeah, that was the Voyage Home. Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I've seen the one with the Borg.
First Contact. The best one's The Wrath of Khan, in my opinion. And most people's probably. It's not a controversial thing to say.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's probably the most referenced thing as far as Star Trek goes too is the iconic scene where he's yelling Khan.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've seen bits and pieces of the show here and there. Probably more episodes than I would probably believe myself if I knew how many episodes I've seen, I probably wouldn't believe it. Just because,
Right.
Coming in the living room, my dad already watching it. I just sit down and watch it as well. I've never sat down and watched them like back to back, but yeah, I've taken on a lot of Star Trek. So,
And I can definitely see why it's such a good or such a beloved. I don't know. Gene Roddenberry could just put in the best cast of characters, ones that like represent everyone you know, and you can see yourself in them. It's really interesting. And I guess we can go directly into the J.J. Abrams Star Trek verse. That I think the best example of it was the most recent Jordan Lynn film, Beyond. What do you think of the new Star Trek reboots? Because I feel alone in like the original series, like fandom, that I really, really like the reboots.
Honestly, earlier when you asked me like, what do I think of reboots? What do I look for and stuff like that? I think they did reboot it in a way that you actually can't be, I guess, offended. Like if you were a huge fan of the original series,
a lot of people
there's no real reason for you to feel that they did this wrong, because it's a completely different timeline, which is just
the Kelvin timeline.
It's just a fantastic like failsafe. Like we didn't have to throw away or invalidate the original series because we're just redoing it in our own way.
I thought that was really cool. That was a cool get out of jail free card that I appreciated. We're not following lore. We're not following like the established mythos. It's a different reality, guys. Like I like that. That's the coolest get out of jail free card ever.
And plus, like there was a lot of fan service in that too, with bringing Nimoy back and having him.
But I do kind of hold. I want to kick Abrams' ass for the amount of times he has to do fan service. I mean, The Force Awakens was 2.5 hour fan service, like jerking off all over my fucking face. Fucking hated The Force Awakens. It's weird. I love the Star Trek movies, but I hate the new rendition of Star Wars. I find it like kind of insulting. Whereas in Star Trek,
my argument would be that Star Wars is probably harder to do. Well, because like, how many Star Trek things can you say that left a really bad taste in the fans' mouth?
Quite a few things.
Because the 3 prequel movies, everyone just completely just decides to say that they don't exist.
Well, who acts like Star Trek Enterprise starring Scott Bakula exists? Or, I mean, Deep Space Nine has its detractors. As far as the original series of films goes, like out of the 6 or 7 that there were, I mean, most fans only like 3 or 4. I mean, and William Shatner as a personality leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth now. But just to really talk about Star Trek, and also what I love so much about it is that Chris Pine is like the ultimate new like William Shatner to me. It's so weird. He looks like Kirk sometimes in the essence field. Like holy shit, like, if I believed in Eastern like spirituality, I'd be like, this guy has some Shatner like inside of him somewhere. It's completely incredible. And huge fan of villains. I've always said that. Ricardo Montalban as Khan is one of my favorite science fiction villains of all time. Khan is amazing. Getting Benedict Cumberbatch to do that role, oh fuck yeah! Because I'm a huge Benedict fan as well. So it's kind of my 2 favorite things in the world.
Really big fan of Benedict Cumberbatch.
I'm a huge Benedict fan, and seeing him be Khan, like already one of my favorite villains, is like, or Orgasm Pie.
Like you could legit name the shittiest role possible, but then say that Benedict Cumberbatch is going to do it. I would be interested.
Oh god, dude! Like you're gonna see Transformers. Benedict is the voice of Bumblebee. Like I'd be like so down with it. It'd be awesome, dude. Oh my god, that was so cool. And the Beyond, Star Trek Beyond is so good and so fun, and even Idris Elba does a fine job as the villain there. Whatever. I also love the Beastie Boys. Like, I'm a huge Beastie Boys fan, so the fact there's a Beastie Boys song in every single Star Trek movie for some reason is amazing. Star Trek Beyond has sabotage.
It's really weird because it's like it is corny,
It's fucking
but
cool.
it's so fun, and
You forgive it.
It's
And
almost
it fits the mood of the universe somehow.
yeah,
Still.
and it's not like they're doing it thinking, you know, what would be really cool right now. They're like, you know, it'd be cool, but also kind of funny. Like, there's no way that the director doesn't chuckle every time that scene comes on. Like,
Exactly, and now it's a thing. So the new Star Trek movie has to have another Beastie Boys song in it. Like, it's a thing now. And like, I remember watching Beyond. Like, really, they're not gonna have the Beastie Boys in this? Oh no, motherfuckers! That was the most badass moment of the movie. Like, it was like, oh holy shit! I'm like, okay, so we'll get Public Enemy and not get Beastie Boys. No, we got the best of both worlds. Whatever. Big fan of the Star Trek reboot. They're so much fun to watch. Like, I even feel like just watching one now, just to have fun. Like, you don't criticize me for this really, but you say, like, sometimes I don't want to just have fun with a movie. Those are the movies I just want to have fun with. And I'm more than willing and able to have fun with those. Other okay remakes or reboots are kind of interesting when it's done by the same director. Like, Funny Games was remade here with Michael Pitt, Naomi Watts, and Tim Roth, and it's very good, but it's also, like, it's essentially the same fucking movie as the original, even made by the same filmmaker himself. So, I mean, those are kind of like cheating. And then we get to like a place in the middle here where I don't hate Peter Jackson's King Kong. But fuck, I don't like it as much as the original 30s film. The original 30s film to me is like the ultimate in like awesome monster movies and like cool ass effects. And I get that Peter Jackson was trying to do the same thing, but we've discussed on this show that CGI does not age well. And if he was trying to make that some kind of spectacle for the CGI, like the first film was a spectacle for miniatures and practical effects up to that point, I would call it a colossal failure. And also, maybe the film was not self-aware enough for it to work. I mean, it's 3 hours of like trying to extract the deepest possible pathos out of a story that is kind of has a laughable premise to begin with. Like, you're supposed to have fun with it. You're not supposed to.
Since we're already on the topic, we can talk about either of the what's it called? Godzilla movies.
Oh, yeah. Talking about, well, one of them fucking sucks. The Matthew Broderick, Hank Azaria 90s film by Roland Emmerich sucks. We could just say that. We could just say that and move on. Never seen
Where it was just a giant lizard and that's it? That's what it came down to be?
Worse than
it was just
that.
a natural thing?
It was like, it has all the worst qualities, the very worst 90s movies. It's nauseatingly and overwhelmingly poor. Never saw the remake, but I heard it surprised me because most of what I heard was decent about it.
The new one?
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that kind of threw me off was if you watch the trailer or any of the commercials for the movie, you would immediately think that the main... Who do you think the main actor in that movie is?
I don't even know who was in that movie.
Okay, well, what's the guy from Breaking Bad? What's his name?
Oh, Bryan Cranston?
Yeah. In all the trailers, in all the commercials, he's the centerpiece.
Oh, is it like a bait and switch?
It's like, pretty much a bait and switch because he dies like within 20 minutes of the movie. And that is a spoiler, but at the same time, like, now you don't have to be pissed off when you watch the movie.
I wouldn't be pissed off. I don't like Bryan Cranston.
Well, it's just annoying because it's like they used Bryan Cranston to get you into the movie, and then they forced this nameless actor down your throat.
Fucking nameless actors.
Like, I'm not even saying that that's why it's bad. It just, I didn't think it was that great of a movie. Like, I
heard mostly decent things, which was surprising, but I don't...
I think the monster was done fine, but... And then it had Mothra, so of course everybody's going to enjoy that.
It did? See, I know nothing about this one.
I believe it was called Mothra. Right?
That's awesome.
Well...
I know that they're...
It might have been... I might be wrong.
They're integrating all the monsters into a new Universal monster universe. I know that Kong Island, the movie that came out recently with Tom Hiddleston, I haven't
seen that.
I think it cliffhangs on Godzilla, so far as I know. The Mummy with Tom Tom Cruise is also involved in that universe. It's going to connect
Really?
to all those monsters. Yeah.
So they're gonna have like an Avengers.
Dude, no, for real, they are like a Monsters United movie or something. They have big names attached to these projects.
Okay.
Javier Bardem, Russell Crowe, just to name a few that are already attached to these movies. It might be interesting.
I want to say that I did hear something.
It's not
about
outlandish. They did that back in the 30s, having all the monsters together, stuff like that. You know, it's not outlandish. I want you to tell me about the Power Rangers reboot because I never saw it. I mean, I'm thinking I wouldn't like it just on principle of the fact that I don't. Like I said, nostalgia hits all the right receptors, but I don't like paying for my childhood twice and being sold it multiple times. I find it cheap. But is it good, like, on its own merits, like, outside of nostalgia? Like, would it be good if there was no Power Rangers before this?
It's got that problem of where it feels like it's shot in one room. Like, there's the school, the city, like their base, and the quarry that leads to the base, and that's it. There's like 4 places in the movie. There's like 4 complete places in the movie.
But you kind of liked it. You said it wasn't campy enough.
It was enjoyable. I don't think it lived up to what you would expect out of Power Rangers. Like, it should be more campy. It should be more cheesy and corny.
But when was the last campy or cheesy movie you saw? I mean, maybe Guardians could fit this mold, but I'm trying to think of any happy-go-lucky fucking movie I've seen. Outside of Guardians, I can't think of a... And I heard that number 2 was actually, like, kind of sad. Like, even... Which I've never... I don't like the Guardians movies, anyway.
But, yeah, so, like... I don't know. It was... Like, if you took Power Rangers and wanted to see them more as modern superheroes as opposed to...
Oh, that's how they did it.
Alien Kung Fu fighters. I don't know.
I don't know how I ever saw them in the first place. Cool action figures is how I saw them.
Pretty much. That's what the whole point was, is to sell you toys. You know, it was during that age of, like, where every cartoon that was coming out was literally just to sell you toys. That's why Pokemon say their own names. That way you can remember what to ask for when you're in the toy store.
Oh, that's twisted. That's twisted. I love it, though. Hold on a second. Woo! That means we're going to talk about the worst reboots now.
All right.
We're just going to start taking massive dumps on people's favorite movies.
Oh, man, that should be fun.
First one, just let me have some fun with this. Red Dragon is the worst reboot as far as I'm concerned. The worst remake, the Hannibal Lecter movie. The original movie, it was made originally by Michael Mann, called Manhunter, starring William Peterson. It was brilliant. It was perfect. It was the shape of crime that never came. It was up there with To Live and Die in L.A. levels of fucking genius. And then Brett Ratner, the biggest hack in Hollywood himself, came and remade it into Red Dragon and just took every ounce of danger, intrigue, and philosophy out of both the Thomas Harris film and the the Thomas Harris novel and the Michael Mann original fantastic, underrated masterpiece film. It took all ounces of creativity and philosophy away from it and just vomited just stupid amounts of retarded machismo bullshit all over it. And Edward Norton got outacted by the fucking dude from CSI, William Peterson. William Peterson was amazing. I just want to say that. Red Dragon is the worst remake I've ever seen because Manhunter is one of the most amazing movies I've ever seen.
Well, I'm thinking about it, and I think when we do a future episode, we'll go into this more, because I'm going to try to get you to watch the movies. And it's the Ghost in the Shell reboot that just came out.
Right.
And like I told you, me and Joey, we probably spent the majority of our night just talking shit about that movie. And look, I get that a lot of people probably enjoyed it, and I actually understand why a lot of people would enjoy it. It's not... Like, if that movie came out and Ghost in the Shell, the animated movie, never existed, I would probably have rated it a lot higher than I do.
I do have primal base instincts, and Scarlet looked very fun to look at in there. I wouldn't mind looking at her for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, and if you...
Is that basically it?
If you want to objectify women, that's the whole idea of her character.
Objectify women,
no, I was making a joke. I was making a joke because, like, the way she acts in that movie is almost like she's a doll because she's supposed to be like an android and she is all still and she doesn't actually do human-like emotions. Like, she walks like she's a robot, kind of. Like, when she sits down, she sits still like the entire time. So
Scarlett Johansson getting paid to be emotionless. Go figure. It's probably the role of a lifetime for her.
Get body. But no, like the movie, like you were saying with the what you were just talking about, Red Dragon. Like you just take a great film and you just extract everything that the hardcore fans love about it.
Right.
Throw it aside. And then give it to the general public. That's exactly what this was.
Was it successful?
I don't.
It's bizarre they made that movie. I'm assuming it. Like I already heard so much about Ghost in the Shell, like the original. So like they were fucking with a property that a lot of people already do like. Like it was a crossover success. I guess from Japan to here, it was like a crossover success.
Oh, so what's weird is, at least from what I've seen, Japan received it a lot better than we did. We've been more critical of it than they have, which I don't know what it is. Maybe the cult following was more a thing over here, because you got to consider, they did make a TV show out of Ghost in the Shell, and it wasn't a philosophical TV show. It was an action-packed
seems like it would be
crime
like
show,
Eon Flux or something.
Yeah, like the show itself was just like a crime show, like with action and stuff like that. More geared towards just her being like a cop, basically.
It always reminded me of Aeon Flux. I know I said that before, but
yeah, but
it's not a bad thing.
The original Ghost in the Shell movie was all about the fact whether or not she was human, and there was a lot of interesting scenes in the movie that just weren't in the real movie. Like, I don't want to go too deep into it because, like I said, once we have both seen it, like we can talk about it more.
I just stayed away because it didn't interest me even in the slightest. But I should at least even watch the original. At least, like I said, a lot of people talk about how good it is. I at least owe it to the original to watch the original version.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to watch that. I think you'll enjoy it.
And then I got the RoboCop reboot.
Oh gosh, that was horrible.
It was mighty terrible.
Oh my god, the original, like, even though it wasn't really a movie, I should have watched.
Excellent satire of 80s iconography, dude. It's amazing. It's an awesome movie. Paul Verhoeven kicked ass on the original. The original was a classic. All the sequels suck and the reboots suck. So it was just lightning in a bottle, and it was just that one movie, and it was great. Really.
Sequels horrible, man.
RoboCop 2 and RoboCop 3 are fucking bullshit. The original, like I said, just lightning in a bottle. You can't recreate it. It's an amazing movie, though. Now I have Planet of the Apes. So do you remember the 2001 Tim Burton remake?
Yeah.
Oh my god. I don't even know where to... Even if I should begin, I don't even know where to begin. That's one of the worst movies I can think of. Oh my god, it's terrible. That's just an awful movie. But I also don't care much for... it's nowhere near like the Tim Burton levels of bad. But I don't care for the rise of the Planet of the Apes universe they've been working on right now. It doesn't interest me at all.
No, I thought it was a little weird. It just didn't feel like it had a whole lot to offer. Like, you could break down that movie into a sentence and you'd be fine.
Yeah, I just really didn't like it. It's just really still uninteresting to me. Next is like Rob Zombie is one of the most talentless fucking filmmakers in the world. His remake of Halloween is just insulting, ultra-violent rape for the sake of rape. It's terrible. Yeah, he's talentless.
Talentless yet successful, which is upsetting.
Well, yeah. Say the same for his music. He's talentless yet successful. Like, I don't even... If I get into Halloween, I'll just turn I'll just start having a fucking rage fit because that's the worst fucking remake of a horror movie I've ever seen. Beaten only by maybe Black Christmas, the original slasher movie. Amazing, amazing movie. And they just turned it into some weird rape fest. I don't understand. I don't understand what's wrong with people.
Yeah, I'll never understand the whole idea that, like, I don't know, like, horror movies that feel like you're supposed to be masturbating during. And it's not, like, because they're sexual, but because it's just perverted.
Oh, I just know these filmmakers aren't mature enough to, like, deal with these concepts in the right way. I mean, I don't hate movies with rape in them. That's stupid. I mean, I like the Last House on the Left, the original Wes Craven movie, is intense and completely terrifying, but the subject matter was handled um, in a nearly masterful way. Same with the original Straw Dogs, Sam Peckinpah's film. It has a very controversial rape scene because you wonder whether or not the person actually is enjoying what's going on. I'm completely. This isn't anti-rape. I mean, Irreversible is one of the most incredible movies of its era. I'm just against it when it's Rob Zombie like doing it to like weird gothic like undertones of like he's just trying to be edgy and he has no talent. Like all I see is like you're just trying to be edgy. You're just trying to be you're fucking you're a talentless little prick boy. You know. And while we're on the subject, the remake of Straw Dogs was terrible. Oh, and remember in the last podcast, you talked about how James Marsden, who played Cyclops, his girl's always like fucking someone else or wanting to fuck someone else. She's the centerpiece of that rape scene I was talking about, of it being like confusing about whether or not she wants it. So he's the ultimate like cuck in that movie as well. Doesn't do it as well as Dustin Hoffman, and Sam Peckinpah was a legendary filmmaker of action. You just there's certain movies you shouldn't touch, and Straw Dogs is one of them. The Wicker Man remake with Nicolas Cage. Good for a laugh. He kicks so many women in the face in that movie. It's amazing. Like just fucking karate, like judo kicks him, man.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either.
The bees, not bees. So good. Also, since we're not done with Cage, Bangkok Dangerous was really bad as well. Most people wouldn't consider this next one a reboot, but I do because it was just so much later. Like so much time had passed since Die Hard with a Vengeance. Then Live Free or Die Hard came out, and I consider it one of the worst like reintroductions of the John McClane character. I remember being in theaters and they censored him by a gunshot when he says "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker." They censored him with a gunshot, and I walked out. I was just so mad, dude. I was so mad.
Is that the one where he's like, "Oh, you killed a helicopter with a car"? And he's
Yes.
like, "I'm out of bullets."
Yes, it had none of the Die Hard appeal. It was just Bruce Willis. He wasn't even John McClane. It had nothing good. Death Race is also on here. That's terrible. Not as terrible as Rollerball, which is also on here. And
Death Race was. I don't even know if that. Like, I didn't know that was a reboot, but Death Race was horrible.
Yeah, just on its own terms.
I felt like I grew up with what is it called? Twisted Metal.
Oh yeah,
the video games.
Yeah, I remember Twisted Metal.
No, I was just like someone tried to make Twisted Metal into a really bad movie. I was just like,
essentially.
No.
And then the Lethal Weapon TV show that's on right now is a slap in the face to, the real Riggs and Murtaugh, my boys Mel and Danny. Fuck that TV show. It's nothing. The remake of Point Break is like the definition of just completely unnecessary. And what makes Point Break so cool in the first place is, well, the fact that it's just a fucking awesome movie. But the natural, like, awesome charisma of Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves. I couldn't tell you who was the star of the remake of Point Break. These are people without personalities. They are, like, lifeless, emotionless. Like, they missed every mark of Catherine Bigelow's original, action comic masterpiece. They missed every aspect of it. Just so pointless. And for me, messing with Point Break's almost like messing with The Godfather. You just shouldn't do it. Then we have the Conan remake, another ultimately forgettable remake. Like, don't even know why that was made. I just have no idea like who they thought would see that movie.
It was bad.
I don't know who they thought would see it. And
I feel like it's this kind of movie you pick up from the $5 bin at Walmart, and
exactly.
then like want your $5 back.
Yeah, it would drive you back just to get $5 back. I also have the Big Sleep, the 1978 version of the remarkable Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall, and Howard Hawks film. The 1978 version stars Robert Mitchum and Jimmy Stewart, and it's just so boring and dumb and dull. And seeing that amount of talent come off as completely boring and characterless sucks. You just don't fuck with the original Big Sleep. And then The Birth of a Nation that just came out. I have to include that on here because I don't think it's right to call D.W. Griffith a terrible human being when he was one of the supreme architects of film grammar. There's absolutely no reason to revise history. Yeah, he was a super huge racist. He also knew how to operate a video camera like really well. He created 3-hour narrative fiction works in an era where that was just unheard of. 1916 saw Intolerance, which is a silent film with like 4 different storylines going on at the same time that all express the same emotional feelings. But these stories are like from different time periods, so it's almost like the complexities of Cloud Atlas over 100 years before Cloud Atlas. We got to give D.W. Griffith credit. I just think this came off as kind of like a temper tantrum of a movie than a remake. Then we have the Total Recall remake. Remember that one?
I didn't see the remake, so
I like the original a lot with Arnold. I mean, I'm a Colin Farrell fan, but I'm a fan of looking at Kate Beckinsale. But there's absolutely no reason for Total Recall to exist as a movie. It's another one. We have so many on here that are just pointless remakes. Like, what? They're not trying to mine any additional concepts. None of these concepts are more relevant like now when they've recreated the movies or remade them. So I just don't even understand the point of remaking them. Like to get like another buck, but these are strange properties to remake. If you're actually looking for a quick buck, why would you pick Total Recall or Conan? Like, why would you do? It doesn't even make sense. I know The Force Awakens isn't a reboot, but I just wanted to say that it fucking sucks. And Psycho, Gus Van Sant remade Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece with Vince Vaughn as Norman Bates. So if you've never seen it, just imagine that. And also imagine it like attempting to be almost a frame-by-frame remake. And it's just terrible. It's just so misguided. It was terrible from the very point of conception. Like, it shouldn't have been made from at all. And then Old Boy, Spike. I don't like the original Old Boy, but the Spike Lee remake will almost inadvertently turn me into a fan because it's so poor. Spike Lee, his ship has sailed. Do the Right Thing was a very long time ago, and we haven't gotten a good Spike Lee movie in a long time, and he definitely can't direct any sort of action and make it interesting. So sorry about that. Then the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo remake is one that, if we're talking about like this new rape fetish, I mean, the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, that's all that series of films are. I find it really weird because I think it plays on like really weird perversions of older men, of like the ultimate like goth hacker girl who's also a lesbian who like will probably fuck you because she's so slutty and like has been raped 1,000 times. It's just a terrible story to begin with, and the fact that they remade it, I can see how they made a quick buck, and that'd be a good property to remake. Rooney Mara is like pretty attractive, and Daniel Craig did fine in the movie, and David Fincher's a good director, but it's just stupid, just a terrible movie, just pointless remake. Again, but you want to make money off would-be rapists and old perverts, go right for it. Then we have Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Tim Burton remake of the classic Roald Dahl or Gene Wilder film. Thoughts?
I feel like there's ups and downs with both movies. I definitely feel that the original movie brought to you the magic of going to a chocolate factory as a child better so than the new movie did. The new movie was too, I don't know, it felt like a commercial to a theme park.
There are so many things wrong with it, though. fact that Johnny Depp modeled his performance on Michael Jackson, the fact that it was compositionally nauseating to look at. Tim Burton, love Beetlejuice, love Batman '89, and I even like Ed Wood. But man, outside of those movies, he's always off. He's fucking terrible. Fucking terrible. And once again, you're touching a property there that's so beloved that, like, you have a 90% chance of fucking up, and, like, he fell directly into that 90 percentile. Then I'm Bonnie and Clyde because I'm a Beatty and Dunaway purist. Don't make movies without them. Then Evil Dead 2, which is a remake, or a sequel, but it's a technical remake because they basically said, like, oh, we have more money and we want to do it this way now. I like Army of Darkness, and I like the original Evil Dead film. I do not like Evil Dead 2 at all. I don't like the tragic comic circumstances under which they made the movie play out. I don't think it's charming. I don't think it's innovative, and I don't think it's fun. I think the original Evil Dead is scary. Army of Darkness is very funny, but I don't like that the bridge in between those two thematic or narrative styles. I find that really cheap, dull, and just a waste of my time. And Fright Night. Fright Night's one of my favorite horror movies. Stephen Jeffries as Evil Ed is one of my favorite, I think, just teen characters in movies. It's another one of those remakes, like, why did you even do that? And it's another one with Colin Farrell. That sucks, too. Sucks for old Colin. But just why would you... It's just another pointless reboot or remake. I mean, at least it's not super rapey like every other remake of a horror movie. At least they kept their fucking wits about them there. But Fright Night's pointless. The Karate Kid with Jackie Chan and Will Smith's kid.
Yeah, that didn't really need to happen.
No, it didn't need to happen at all. And the entire Will Smith family, it just lacks charisma. Terrible movie. Terrible movie. Terrible movie. Pointless. Pointless. Then we get to the controversial Ghostbusters. The Kristen Wiig vehicle, who is a very funny lady, and everyone was very unfunny in Ghostbusters.
I still haven't seen it.
It's terrible, and it shouldn't have had this much controversy applied to it.
Well, the thing is that when you take a movie that has a full cast of males, and then you replace it specifically with a full cast of females, it's immediately controversial.
Well, I think it would... Like, people would have talked shit about it anyway, even if you cast a whole new group of males. I don't think the female aspect was really that challenging, to me at least.
It was the most controversial thing about it.
It really just boils down to the fact that Harold Ramis died, therefore there's absolutely no reason to remake Ghostbusters. It came off to me as a pointless remake.
It seemed pretty fast, too. Like, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago that Ghostbusters was a thing. Like, it's still talked about. So...
And it's also a beloved property thing. I mean, if you take offense to the fact that that movie exists, it doesn't make you a misogynist. It just means that you cherish something from your childhood. And unless you are outright being an asshole. And, I mean, there were those types that did exist that said, like, shouldn't be in all... It's like a political statement of a movie, which I don't buy into all that shit. I just think it was a bad movie. Mostly because it was so unnecessary. Like I said, when Harold Ramis died, the idea of another Ghostbusters film, reboot, sequel, or otherwise, should have died with him. It was just pointless. Just pointless. And I don't have much hope for the upcoming It reboot. It looks like they're lacking a lot of the subtlety that even the original Tim Curry television miniseries had, where the subtext is scary because he's essentially raping children. It's essentially a story of a child molester, whereas in this new movie, it actually does look like the story of a monster. So they're kind of missing subtext here, which isn't surprising. I understand why they would remake it, though. There are certainly concepts in there that are worth mining, and I can't say for certain until I've seen it myself, but it doesn't look like they're going to be mining the concepts that I think are still relevant today. And
no, I think they're just going for Scary Clown.
Yeah, I think they're just going for Scary Clown as well, where they could labor on the complexities, but it actually takes hard work. And you actually have to have faith in your audience to... People think audiences are so fucking dumb. I fucking hate them. Man, those are my reboots. I don't know if I have more. The Bram Stoker's Dracula with Francis Ford Coppola, I thought was a miserable movie. I do like Keanu Reeves, and Winona Ryder is one of the most gorgeous women ever. But God, terrible movie. Francis Ford Coppola lost his groove after Apocalypse Now. Got it back a little bit with The Outsiders, and then you never saw that talent ever again. Same with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the Kenneth Branagh, Robert De Niro movie. Terrible as well. Terrible movie as well. Are we missing? I'm trying to think of other reboots or remakes. So far, I'm just shitting all over everyone that comes to mind. So I'm trying to think. Can you think of any?
I feel like Spider-Man's getting remade way too much.
Oh yeah.
I'm hopeful for the new one because it looks like they're kind of avoiding a whole idea of a reboot, and they're just going into just making a new story.
Yeah, I really didn't like the Andrew Garfield version.
No, it's like there's only so many times you can care about Uncle Ben dying.
Yeah, no, I didn't even give a fuck the first time.
So yeah, yeah, and then like I think just about every superhero is being rebooted right now.
Yeah, if it didn't work 10 years ago, they're just rebooting it over again.
Yeah, because they're thinking, well, it's actually popular now, so let's do it.
And they're all... You see, I think that the superhero tentpole, or like the I think it's cracking right now. I think that at the end of... I think that Marvel are geniuses, and I think at the end of Infinity Wars is actually going to be the end of the superhero era of films. And that all these movies, especially DC, that have caught on the train a bit too late, they're going to feel the repercussions of bombing 1 million times in a row. I do think the superhero bubble is about to pop. And it's going to pop at the end of Infinity Wars.
I'm not too opposed. I mean, I could care less one way or another.
I'm not opposed. I'm actually looking forward to watching all these filmmakers scramble for the next billion-dollar idea they can milk for the next 20 years. I just don't even know what that would be.
I don't know. I'm definitely interested to see where it goes because, like, we plan to talk about, you know, popular nerd culture, if you want to call it that, because it's so mainstream right now that it's kind of just a joke to even say nerd because you take the meaning away from the word, like
you do.
So
it's more socially acceptable. Like, I feel bad for the old school nerds who are like out of their prime right now because you can actually go to a bar right now with a Ghost Rider t-shirt and people will compliment you for it. Cute chicks will compliment you.
Yeah, but they won't know anything about it.
Nah, they don't have to. You don't even have to wear it.
Exactly. Like, there are so many people that I see with nerdy t-shirts. Like, today I saw a woman wearing a Punisher shirt, and I'm just like, how much does she actually know about Punisher? Like, what does she actually know? Other than this has a skull on it, and it's the Punisher, so that's kind of cool. And I bought this at Walmart for $10.
Deadpool shirts and Punisher shirts are the designators of douchebaggeries. I only ever see douchebags wearing Deadpool and Punisher shirts.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really on it. Like, at this point, you could wear any superhero t-shirt, and I'm just going to assume that you probably don't know that much about the person on the t-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Unless it's a character that I've never heard of. Then I'll assume that you might know something. Because at that point, if I don't know about it, then it's probably not mainstream. So, because if it's mainstream, then everybody knows about it. So,
underground doesn't exist anymore. We live in a new age. But I think we're at the end of this podcast.
Yeah, I think we've said enough.
Is there anything else you'd like to add just on reboots or remakes? I feel like we should have done best after worst, because now I'm thinking that they shouldn't do them anymore, because all I
can say this. Disney should stop.
Just stop.
It works, and they're making their money, and a lot of people, for whatever reason, enjoy it. But, like, taking literally every successful cartoon and making a live-action movie.
Live-action version.
Like, they're making Lion King. And I was like, okay, with the people that they were getting, like, the cast that they're putting together right now, I was like, because they haven't really released that much information about it, unless something came out, like, within the last couple of weeks, and I just haven't seen it. I was thinking, what would be really interesting, since they're hiring all these black actors, I was thinking maybe they're going to do a live action with African roots, like, as opposed to using animals. Like, they're going to actually use people.
Oh, like the Broadway play?
I don't... Ooh, I meant more like actually use, like, an African tribe.
Yeah.
That would be very interesting to me. I could... that's something I could support, is if they wanted to do a reimagining as opposed to a recreation. Because I think what they're actually going to end up doing is they're just going to have CGI tigers running around. Or not tigers, lions. They're going to have CGI animals running around talking to each other and dancing and stuff like that. And I'm just not... I'm not excited.
I don't want to see either version. The tribe or the CGI tigers. Disney should just stop, but, like, I don't pay any attention to that company, so I hardly know when they're doing something. I know they're making, like, Mulan.
Yeah, see, they're just taking literally every successful movie and remaking it.
Yeah, I don't pay attention to that company much. I guess I'm all the better off for it.
At this point, yeah. Like, Disney definitely had its prime in, like, the, the early 1900s. When they were first taken off. Or, like, I guess, no, not the early, but, like, the mid-1900s, like, 50s and 60s, like, when they were first taken off.
Age.
And then their Renaissance, as they call it, when it came back with, like, The Little Mermaid, and then they started taking off with, like, The Lion King and all that in the 90s, or late 80s, I guess, through the early 2000s. And now they are seemingly just working off of our nostalgia, and it's a slap in the face for someone like me who loves animation and should be looking up to Disney as a company, but I don't. I actually hate how much Disney's important because of how they are now.
Well, even in their golden age that you just talked about, they were notorious for treating their animators like human garbage.
Yeah, I mean, it's believable. Like, I don't know if they have the same problem that Japan has, but in Japan, with their comics and their animation, they don't credit any of the workers at all.
Yeah, it's like that. It was like that.
It's only the writer and the main illustrator that gets credit. Everyone else is just paid. That's it.
It was essentially like the same kind of power dynamic there. You were a part of the workshop, and you were a cog as opposed to an individual vessel of creativity. But we gotta go, Kraig. We gotta do this thing.
All right. Yep.
I want to thank you guys for listening. Nightcrawler Podcast. Once again, keep an eye out for our sister podcast called Daywalker, which will be launching here soon. Be mostly the same kind of content or material. Eventually, I'm sure it'll be certain topics will be designated to a certain podcast, but at this point, that's all up in the air. I want to thank you guys for listening, and have a great day. Reboot your lives.
I'm out.